Well, Beth, we've got some interesting things here on the table. So, what is this?
Well, I'm a curator of a herbarium, and a herbarium is a library of pressed plants, essentially. So at William and Mary has we have about 80,000 plants that represent the local flora. It's not so much to represent your garden plants, but there are herbaria that have that, and we have vascular plants. So that's what we do. They're all mounted on this archival paper, and they should last for hundreds of years, if not, papyrus is 1,000 years old, a millennia. So there are herbaria in Europe that go back to the 1500s that are still active.
Fantastic. So tell me, how do we, how is an herbarium created? I mean, the actual steps of getting to this point.
Okay, well, someone is interested in collecting something, and I have an example here. So you have to press the plants, and this doesn't have the outside press, but you can people have known for a long time that you can press it in a phone book or something like that. But basically, you just need to put pressure on it, and because plants have the cell wall, they're perfect for pressing. You can't. I joke, you can't do that with a salamander. Sorry, but you can do it with the plants, and they should last a long time. So, and this I brought today is something that was collected by John Townsend in the Difficult Creek Natural Area.
Okay, well,
and it's
I see this is in the newspaper.
It's Joe Pye. Yeah, so you press it in between the newspaper, which is very absorbent, and you overlay it with an aerator, which is a fancy way of saying cardboard, which is an aerator, and then we have this blotting paper, and you put the plant in there, and when he collects it, you can see how it is. Like whoever presses this in the field or when you first smash it, that's pretty much the way it's going to look. I can't do much with it after that.
So here it is in flower.
Yes, it is. And so here it's a wonderful collection. This is Joe Pye weed, Eutrochium, and this is the hollow stem Joe Pye weed, and he is a good botanist, so he included a little bit of this so you can see that it is the hollow stem species.
So we have a full identification of this specimen.
Yes, and it's a wonderful collection for documenting the flora of Difficult Creek State Park or wherever the natural area, and it can be used for research to compare other specimens like that.
So we've got it flat, basically. We've squished it. What's our next step?
We will mount it. So to do that, we have to get the paper.
Which we have down at the bottom there.
We have down at the bottom.
Yes.
I've already mounted the label, which is really important to get the label right. Because the label, it has the species name, which is almost the least important part because I could figure that out perhaps. But I could never figure out that John Townsend collected it in 2018 on a certain date in a certain place. So you need to have that information. So before I mount that on the paper, we have to get the glue. There's different ways to mount it. Some places you can just use a regular white glue. Some places do that, herbaria.
But not school glue.
But not school glue.
Right.
But we use a method of all over pasting. So we pour the glue out. Don't need too much. This is a lot of glue.
I love it.
And and then we need to add a little bit of water.
Right.
More came out than I needed for this one specimen.
Oh, that's okay.
So then this is fun. The students at William and Mary love this part, many of them.
Well,
I tell them it's arts and crafts as opposed to arts and sciences, but they're doing arts and sciences.
Yes.
But we work on this and you kind of thin it out.
Because you don't want it too thick.
No. But it depends on your material. If you have a woody stem, you need it thicker. You might need a little thicker if you have a grass or a fern, thin, because things get stuck in it. So you kind of just work it based on what you have. So that's what we do.
This looks like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
How fast does that glue dry?
Well, once the first step, actually, we had to figure out how it fits. And this looks like a good place for it to fit. That little bit fell off. Yeah, that happens. So, and on some of these flowers, I'm going to leave a little bit out of the glue. Just tap it down. I have a little probe here, and I just stick it in the glue all over, making sure both sides of the leaves are shown.
Okay.
And then
ever so carefully.
Yeah. I have some, so I'm going to help by picking this up.
I'm going to move this.
And once I do it down, I'm not going to move it if I didn't like it the way it worked.
So be it.
Yeah. And this, I like it this way because he showed very well. You don't need that much glue because there's such a large surface area
Interesting.
with these. So I'll use this to pick it up so I don't get too much on my fingers.
That is very sticky, yes.
Yeah, that's
So we have a label, and now we have the plant. And
right. And I had
and
some
we have it
wax
on
paper.
I was saying,
So then I kind of just put the wax paper here. We have some, you can use any weights generally, like a book or something, but we have these special ones that were made that we just kind of put on and let it sit for a while. And then we'll just keep piling up. We'll put another piece of blotter paper and then another piece of cardboard, and you can build it up, and we get stacks this high when we're doing a big project.
Okay.
So we let it sit there, and it doesn't take, leave it for an hour or so like this. When they're collected, they need to dry in the newsprint at least a week around in this area. But for the glue, that just needs to sit there for a while.
interesting.
Like that.
So once it's dried, and we've been able to have a specimen, all, I'll say, visible for people to share, what are the uses of the herbarium? When people are, why would they want to come to William and Mary and look at the herbarium?
Right. So here's one that was collected actually in the Wilcox watershed in Petersburg.
Interesting.
Donna Ware collected this, which was a nice. She was interested in collecting this to compare with a 1930s collection that was done by the WPA workers, and to come back and say, well, 50 years later, 60 years later, what's changed? So you're looking at changes through time historically, which is what's so nice about herbarium specimens, because they'll last that long, so you can go and see them. You can even look at, and they're finding with more going back, you can get the DNA from them, you can look under the scope and studies like this. And of course, taxonomists love this.
I was also wondering, could you use it as an art reference? We don't have much time left, but is it possible for artists doing watercolors like Bessie Niemeyer Marshall, would she have used an herbarium maybe to help?
She did use them.
Figure out those beautiful watercolors.
Fresh materials and herbarium specimens, they can be quite lovely. It's not always the job is trying to make it look good here, but artists can do it, and they can look quite lovely.
And they can study to make sure that they're absolutely anatomically correct. So
yes,
or
if you want to, I love things where the morphology is correct.
Spot on.
It just looks so much better to my eye. But
yes,
that's me.
Well, Beth, I want to thank you for being on the show to show us this. This is something not very many people know about. And I actually used the herbarium from VCU to learn a lot of the wildflowers in my career. So thank you so much.
Wonderful.